Okay. We'll pull it right back up.
I had to bring a little chaos in the order.
That's right. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of chaos. But
I had to see if we were present.
we are present. That's the theme of our show. Everybody, welcome into the fifth dimension.
Oh, we're starting?
This is the start of the show. We're jumping right into it.
Wow.
A little bit of chaos. I'm here. New studio, new vibes. This is the christening.
Yeah, the christening of the new podcast room.
That is right.
How beautiful is that?
New home, new podcast studios, new episodes, new adventures.
I like this room.
We have a lot of memories in this
Yeah.
room. Well, didn't we record some of the trifecta of light in here?
Yeah, with Joshy. Yep.
Yeah. So there are a few. If you guys go back far enough, a couple years,
It's out there.
It's out there. It's
caught in the web.
It's in the ether of the fifth dimension somewhere. You go back, look at our trifecta of light episodes. We actually recorded in this room. This was not my place at that time. This is my place now.
Yep.
But so there's some history in this room. we both have a lot of sacred memories in here. So to have it as a podcast studio, big time honor.
Pretty amazing.
Big time honor. Feels very I don't know, feels very humbling, Feels very humbling. It's
a little surreal to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but just that's what I was saying before we started. I was like, I don't know why I'm like nervous. Nothing makes me nervous,
I feel you.
Having my kids, they're like, "Sir, you might want to sit down." A lot of dads pass out here. I'm like, "Oh no, I'm good." Like, I don't get shaken very easily. So,
well, I was gonna say, I think this is just the start of a new chapter, a new era for both of us. We both got some big things going on, in life in general. Shout out Sacred Vibes, which is coming here in Chamberlain. It's the first time it's been mentioned on the show.
Yeah, first time it's been mentioned in
how would you
real time.
How would you this is a good way to like talk about it a little bit though. How would you explain Sacred Vibes? It's your vision, your idea. Is there a way you would encapsulate Sacred Vibes to give people an idea of what we're even referring to?
Well, I think the easiest way I could probably describe it is if you're meant to go there, you're meant to go there.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'll leave it at that. Everything that encompasses what the store, the destination will be, you will get that full experience when you come see.
That's right. And I was going to say, anybody who's even listening to this show, their energy would be in alignment with that type of environment.
Yes, they'd most definitely be drawn or welcome to Sacred Vibes.
Yeah, not just a shop, but
anyone's welcome. But you're gonna know
if it's home.
Yeah, if it's home.
Sometimes places feel like home.
There. Yep.
But I love it. Shout out Sacred Vibes coming soon. Stay tuned. There will be plenty of updates on this podcast about when we're launching and the social medias.
We'll get the social media stuff up here soon.
Yeah, I did create the new Facebook page. I just haven't really done anything on it.
Yeah.
So
no, remember our open date, our first grand opening day. I want it to be the first day of summer. So that's some time, and if it happens before then, that's fine. I'm not trying to rush anything. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to force anything. This is happening exactly how it's supposed to happen. This has been a culmination of many years in both of our paths. Because if you wouldn't have been you and done you and met me, and I wouldn't have done me and met you, and then kept growing and learning and creating, then Sacred Vibes would never be possible.
I agree. Well, I think a lot of the things we're doing wouldn't be possible.
No.
I don't think certain things with the show would be possible. I don't
even know if their world existence would still be here.
Right. Right.
Hard
exactly. It's hard to say, but I think we've planted a lot of seeds over the years, and we're starting to see a lot of them sort of sprout up beneath the surface and ready to give us the fruits of our labor, which is nice. But
that has a lot to do with us being present with those seeds while we planted them,
And I was gonna say,
and continuing to be present with them while they're growing,
Conscious presence, intention, and then through that, it's not always just about the intention and the planet. We have to be watering them. You have to be with it.
There's a lot of work involved in being present with. It's not just like you set it and forget it. It's not a chia plant.
No. Right, yeah. Let it sprout up on its own.
Look at this thing. This is awesome.
You might
not
get
a weed.
You might get one of those every once in a
Yeah.
while,
I mean, I
but
think
that's not the majority.
that's the goal of it all,
Yeah.
is to be able to autopilot it almost, by
Right.
continuing that routine all the time.
Well,
So
I think that's what it comes from, the routine, where you can
yeah.
actually kind of almost you let things take on a life of their own, whether it's any creative project or a
Hmm.
business or anything. I mean, I can kind of do that with the podcast in certain ways. There's always a level of action that I need to take,
Yep.
but the show itself has a life of its own. It's already an
Yeah, its own
entity.
entity.
It's
Yeah,
its own
its own
entity.
vibe. It's its own
And that's already
collective.
established. So I
Yeah.
can let
Yep.
that do its thing, and I can not publish an episode for a month.
People are
Right now.
yeah,
And
people
then
are still gonna
people still tune in.
yeah.
Right? There's the
Just
whole
like remember being out. Well, you've mentioned a few different stories within
Mhm.
school, but also like when I was out in Deadwood, I met the one guy that was vibing with me and Gunner, and like dude was like 65.
Yeah.
He looked like a very spiritual being, and I start talking to him, and then I'm like, yeah, my brother has a podcast because he was talking about some type of podcast, and then I mentioned the Fifth Dimension. He was like, your brother's Evan McDermott? And I'm just like, at first I was kind of creeped out because I'm just like, how do like, hey, are you like stalking? Like, but then, when I put it all together and just,
Yeah.
it was cool. It was interesting.
Yeah. I was gonna say, shout out to that guy.
Shout out to Tad.
Because
Shout out to Tad out there in Deadwood.
I'm
Yep.
sure he's gonna be tuning in and
Yeah.
excited for the new
Then
episode
I
coming
told him,
out
I
to
was like, yeah, if
Chamberlain.
you ever come through Chamberlain, I was like, he'd love to have you on his podcast. Are you serious? I'd come out there right now just for that. Man, this guy's diehard.
Right on. That's what we're all about. Building
And I was a
community.
little skeptical when
Right.
he said your name though. It was
I mean, that's hard to make up.
yeah. How do you just like throw that out there? Yeah.
That's what I was to say. Has a life of its own in a lot of ways, and you build up, and that's going to be the same thing with Sacred Vibes. But I think that's what you kind of almost need to do, just like in life in general. As long as you're present and you're,
I was just gonna say.
as long as you're present and you're taking conscious actions, you start to do things and create things that are meaningful, and then
Yeah,
it takes
like being
on.
present with Tad, and then look what
Hmm.
happened. Look where it ended up to. Like
Right. Right.
I never would have
Exactly.
guessed this guy that I
Well,
didn't
it
know who
just
he was.
makes you wonder how many people like that are out there, and if
Yeah,
you actually choose to sit and be present with the person in front of you instead of projecting on your own
stories and
stories, biases,
yep,
ideas, whatever it might be. It's like, let me hear what this person has to say and let's see the magic that comes from it.
yeah.
There's a level of authenticity and
I
resonance that
think
you
that's when the
create.
most magical things do happen. Is like when you're being, yourself and being
Hmm.
present with yourself in that person's space, right? But then them also acknowledging it and doing the same, then who knows how, what happens, like
No.
what conversations you have, what you unlock, what you kind of ponder. I mean, all kinds of things. It's wild.
Well, in the mind, it does so much to try and take away from the presence, though. And it's like, it's weird because I don't think when it's happening in the day to day, you don't always realize that's what it is.
No, because that's
Or
part of your routine.
it's part of the routine to let the mind do its thing. And it
Be
has its,
distracted to kind of get
yeah.
through the stuff that you're really maybe not wanting to do, but knowing you kind of have to in certain aspects.
And I think it came on as a survival mechanism in a
Mhm.
way, which is why our mind operates as it does, and we're constantly in fight or
Very
flight.
primal. Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
primal.
very primal. So it's like you can't really hold shame over the mind doing that. But then I think we also take it to another level through technology and through
Oh
other
yeah.
means of numbing and distraction.
Well, think about if we're only using X amount of our brain capacity, right?
What, 3%
Okay,
maybe?
so we're using that all through history, right? And then all of a sudden we enter fucking technology, and then how much more? Because have they done a test on how much more we use our brain? Because they did those tests before
Hmm.
people were so stimulated by technology and stuff. You know what I mean? So how much more are we actually using? We got to be
Well,
using more.
you could make the argument we're using less because of technology. What if the technology is doing the thinking for us and therefore it turns the brain processes off? You know what I mean?
No, I get that.
I heard a story about a guy who this was just somebody's like own user report in a
Yeah.
way of they noticed that because they constantly use chat GPT to
Mhm.
come up with a very like a specific responses
Yep.
for things or just
You
so
got
and
to
that's not
talk
and
for it,
yeah,
basically.
it
Yeah.
basically is replacing it's his own ability to converse and communicate, and
Yep.
he like went cold turkey from it for a week or two, and it's like he can't even think, can't form
Really.
sentences, having trouble like computating in the way
That's
that he normally
integrating
would.
way too much,
Well, right.
you
And so
know.
it's like, I think there's a way to integrate these technologies, and I use them try and use them consciously. I know you do too.
Yeah,
And there's a way
but
to help.
not just
You can't let it do it all for
no.
you. And
Then
that's
what's
a,
the point of you being there?
well, and that's the
You know?
thing. I think that's the direction. If we're unconscious and we're not present, that's kind of what society gears people
Yeah,
towards. It's to like an unconscious, just moving forward, automaton robot. I
yeah.
am programmed to do X,
That'd be a
Y, Z.
horrible existence.
Terrible, terrible. There's no soul in it. There's no life
No,
in it. There's no meaning in it.
it's just filling, doing,
It's just being alive and not while not being alive.
not even being alive. I mean,
There's no spirit.
obviously, yeah. There's no
Well,
spirit
because
or
and if you look at the word spirit,
creation.
if you look at the word spirit itself, it
Yep.
stems from like the animating life force that is within the human being, right? So an anime means alive and it means like vitality, right? So the spirit itself is that part of oneself that makes you feel alive and makes you feel all these sense of wholeness and vitality, and you want to, yeah,
Yeah,
taking that approach to life where you're grabbing it by the horns and it's rock on,
yeah. That's your spirit.
yeah. But if you eliminate that and you're so integrated into tech, then you lose spirit, you
Oh
lose
yeah. Well,
soul, and then you become just carnal flesh for the purpose of a
uh,
larger
robotic,
robotic
fucking
system,
yeah.
you know and I think that's a big, if we're not present, that is what we unconsciously become, because that is what the system kind of operates on in a lot of ways. It's unconsciousness.
Mhm.
It's more of like, well, let me just go along to get along with all of it. Doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. I am an individual, but hey, I just got to do X, Y, and Z to survive, and boom, that's it. There isn't necessarily as much creation for a lot of people. So when people talk about like, and I've even talked with a couple students recently about they're opening up about certain creative things that they're
Mhm.
doing, and like painting and drawing
Right.
and all these different things that they do. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, like that's a great like hobby to have when you're young in the day and age where technology is so
Imagination, man.
rampant.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
like using that imagination. That's exactly what it's all about. That's what I try.
And then expressing it through what your forms they're choosing. And that's awesome.
And it goes beyond words to have that
That's spirit in
expression.
itself.
It
Yeah.
is. It
Yeah.
is the expression of one's spirit and one's
That's awesome.
vitality. Well, I noticed how difficult it is to be present when I did my 10 days of meditation.
Oh
I mean,
man.
when you're sitting there for 10 days straight, the mind goes everywhere. It's
How can
the
it not?
They call it the monkey mind for a reason. Like it's like boom, 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 boom,
Back
boom,
and
boom.
forth. Yeah. And then probably multiple probably trying to think of multiple things at once. You're like, you can't even do that. Like you want to be like, stop. Like,
I had that breaking point when I was in there. I'm like, at what point am I just gonna sit here and be present? Like I had to say that to myself. At what point am I just gonna this silence, nothing, but everything, right? And it's crazy. It's crazy because it does. And I think there's a certain level of thinking and processing and evaluation and reflection that's good in things like meditation, right? But like the point of meditation is to just be. It's to just be present. There is no other point.
no, that's it.
Literally, that's
Nothing
it.
else.
So anytime you start talking about like healing meditations and this meditation, it's like, okay, those can be helpful, but
Yeah.
am I just packing on more stuff? I heard Ram Dass talking about this. I listened to There's a good YouTube channel that does 24/7 Ram Dass
Hmm.
lectures, and it has lo-fi music playing in the
Oh
background,
yeah.
and it's just
That just made
constant.
my ears ring you saying that. Wow.
It's constant. It's always in my suggestions because I usually put it on in the background. But I heard him talking about that the other day. Like, even in your spiritual practices, at what point is it just more stuff to hide away from the present
That's
moment?
funny.
And it's an interesting
I
point.
was just thinking about that yesterday when we were in the kitchen and I was talking about you could be a master of something, put that label on you as you just know you're all knowing or all omnipresent, with a specific thing, tarot reading or
Hmm.
master bricklayer, whatever it is, a teacher, right? You could be a master at that, but in the grand scheme of things, in the infantism of everything, you're still nothing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
but that makes you everything, because nothing and everything are the same thing, which is the beauty of it.
But when
It's an
you
infinite.
understand, like you just said, it makes you everything too. When you understand that, no matter how much you are powered up or what your intellect or knowledge is, you realize that isn't nothing.
Yeah.
Then that gives you that other opposite effect of but you are everything too.
Exactly. We're all of it. And I think that, and
Yeah.
then we can actually start to honor, because you can get into the almost nihilist perspective of it,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, okay, I am nothing. Then my life is meaningless. Then I'm
Yeah.
worthless. And,
But then we were talking about that like with the simulation, if that's your theory, which obviously if an infinite amount of scenarios, then of course we're in a simulation a few times. But the grand of it, no.
right.
You know.
Exactly. There is something that
Or
we
it's way
are
more meaningful.
that is
Obviously.
much more meaningful,
Yeah.
that is much grander, much more abundant than just being trapped in some sort of like controlled uh algorithmic type of computer
Sequences
universe.
type of thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like you could talk. That's why like even the idea of a matrix, right? It's like I think there is a matrix per se, but if you break that word down, the word matrix comes from the word mother,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if you're in the confines of the matrix, I would argue we are in the confines of Mother Earth. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that some people don't escape the quote unquote matrix because they constantly need the dependencies
Of matter and
of
yeah,
matter in
matter. Yep,
itself.
of matter. Yep.
That's a good way to put it. I don't think I would have came up with that on my own. But that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But as soon as you to actually escape that, it's like I don't need anything and I still know
Do
who
you
I
think
am.
that their like obsession with matter is because they're lacking the actual matter of Mother Earth type of thing? You know, don't you think that? Because if you had all the matter of the Earth,
Yeah.
then all the other objects and things that you're trying to fill that with would be
Meaningless.
meaningless.
Meaningless. Well, I think it's a it's the mind telling them that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they because realistically, what do you actually need? What do people actually need? Like, I mean, obvious
Water and air,
water, air,
some food, maybe.
sunlight, maybe once in a while. But even then, in this exact moment, what do we need?
Like just to be
Yeah,
nothing.
nothing. And for most people
They'll never
in
understand
the
that.
day to day, that's kind of where we're at,
Yeah.
right? So we've created a world where now obviously there's people who don't have housing and there's people who don't have access to clean
Yeah.
water and so like obviously you can't speak for everybody and there.
Oh shit.
Holy smokes, chaos is on the menu.
Yeah, I can't speak for everybody.
It's fine.
You can leave it.
No, I think it's meant to be on the ground. I don't think that's meant to be the
That
fun.
scared the shit out of me.
I don't think that's meant to be the final resting point.
No, I don't think so.
Clearly, because it's fallen down twice now.
We'll get her hung up.
We'll put the feather here, though.
That was wild. That woke me up, everyone.
Good morning, Fifth Dimension.
Yeah, right.
We have a little.
Yeah.
We are present.
We
I
are
like.
alive and present.
I like that. I like that. But I think it's a.
So go back to what you're saying though.
I
Like
think it's a perceived sense of lack, and it's a programmed sense of lack because we've come to view our self-worth and our own identity and entangled it with matter in itself and what we own and what we possess and what we're supposed to do, what job we have,
all of it.
how much money we have, obviously, things like that.
The whole
The game.
Yeah, the whole game of what was told about, like we're supposed to do this, like this.
There's like almost a social contract we've been bought into and
Yeah, we
can
agreed to in a sense, just like the money. Like,
right. It's a social idea. It's a
yeah.
social idea. And it's like, can you get past the cultural worship of this game? You start to realize I don't need any of that stuff to actually be me and to actually live my life in a fulfilling way. I got to play to some degree, as we both talked about. You got to play in some aspects to just have the basic survival, I
Do you
guess.
think you really need to though? Is that
No.
still? Do you think that is
No.
Yeah.
Maybe I just tell myself that to
you do.
justify my
Yeah,
existence.
to keep going on with what you're doing.
Right.
Because obviously, I'm not saying that you're gonna just have free stuff and live in a free house. That's not what I mean. But to exist, I don't think you need anything.
No.
You don't need to buy into any of that. Now, I'm not saying you won't have to live in your own constructs of a house or a fucking tent or whatever that looks like, but I don't think you do.
No, I don't think so.
I've been there.
Well, and there's plenty of indigenous tribes that still exist in like the Amazon that have no contact with the outside world, and they live in the hunter-gatherer lifestyle still,
Still,
right?
and
And
they're
it's like,
thriving,
I mean,
and
we got the Hutterites right around the corner, right? They have their own
yep.
entire different, like, systematic way of living. And
Do you
now,
see how their like lifespans are even longer too,
well, it just goes to
in
show you.
aspects like
Yeah, goes to show you that they're more connected with the body, with the earth, with what true health is. They're more, I think the more you come back to the earth and the
mhm,
more you disconnect oneself from the actual programmed ideas on
mhm.
what we're being told, you start to realize all this is a bunch of nonsense, right? We're being systematically poisoned in the food, the water.
We're literally being not forced but tricked into not being present.
Hmm.
You know,
Well, because what would happen if everybody decided to be present all at once?
I mean, I couldn't. I couldn't.
You can't even fathom it.
No, not really. I don't think anybody can, to be honest. I think there's lots of words we could use to try to describe it. I think the first thing that would happen was we'd probably like start floating.
Levitation? Yeah, we probably
Honestly,
would.
the whole world would just be like, "Oh wow, look at us."
We probably
I don't know.
would.
I don't even know. How can you even like try to guess what would happen if you know what I mean?
That's like that
I don't
idea
get
of
it.
it's like that idea of world peace. It's like it's almost an unattainable, like, you strive for it, but will you ever truly achieve it? Because there's always going to be chaos. There's always going to be chatter. There's always going to be noise. There's going to be, because, I mean, you can have maybe a collective, like, state of peace per se, but who's to say that one individual decides, "Nah, let me embark on a little chaos," or, it's like the light and the dark. It's the,
Yeah, it's never gonna just be purely one thing
no.
ever. It can't be.
Mm-mm.
So if that means that the world is so much more peaceful, there's still going to be chaos.
Levels of
There's still going to
chaos.
be people that have to walk their paths in their own shadows and find the light. So, but I don't think that it would necessarily be just so like empty of one or the other. I mean, like you said, it's always going to have both.
Well, right. And I think, like, even if we were to create a new system, a new world,
Mm-hmm.
a new, which is what I think we're doing in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
even within that, your you'll have your
Black sheep.
black sheep and your disagreements and your, they'll have greed, you'll have lust, you'll have envy, because there's a reason they called those the original sins,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like in our mind.
Choice. That's in our.
Yeah,
That's a part of our
we have
choice.
those temptations
Yeah.
within us all of the time, regardless of how holy or spiritual we
But I
become.
think also until we get to that point of a higher consciousness as far as unlocking that or being present in that moment, then I think honestly I do think that it would go away a lot.
Yes,
You know what
for
I
the
mean? Because
majority.
like, can you imagine everybody like the whole world being Ram Dass?
Oh my
You know what
lord.
I mean? And
Oh
then
my
in a
lord. And
sense,
it's possible. You
yes,
can't.
or everyone being a Bashar. You know what I mean? Like that. Imagine that's what everybody for the majority of the planet was.
Right, exactly. Well, but even Ram Dass talks about he still has that monkey mind on occasion. He still has those things that come up,
Yeah.
but he's tapped in with himself enough
He's able to just
to
be present with it and then let it go.
and see it and observe it and
Yep.
say, "Ha, that's interesting,"
Yep.
and then go with it.
Yep. Yep.
And that's kind of, I feel like we're both getting to that point. I mean, I don't think either of us are perfect. We never will be,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm much more able to actually sit with myself in the shadows and sit with,
Mm-hmm.
when something comes up where I'm like, huh,
Yeah,
this is interesting.
we're more honest with ourselves with those things. I think that's why.
Well, you have to be, if you're present with yourself, you have to be honest with
Yeah,
yourself. Otherwise, you're not
you're not
present.
present.
That's a
That's
big
one of
thing.
the things too. Yeah,
And if you're
I
not going to
agree.
be honest with yourself, you're not going to be honest with anybody else.
No, so how can you be present with yourself or anyone else? You can't.
You can't,
Yep.
because it's like you constantly have a shadow that you're trying to hide,
Mm-hmm.
and
But you can't hide it because you know it's there.
right. It's
So
always there. It's
it's
under the
yeah,
surface. A lot of times it might be in the unconscious mind
yeah.
even,
Other people might not be able to see it, which is, you
but then
know,
are you just living hoping that your shadow doesn't
yeah,
emerge?
exactly.
And
You
whenever
really are.
truth is
Yeah,
always revealed in some form, some
no
facet,
matter what.
no matter what.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
That's the law of the land.
it is. It really is. So that's why when you asked me that one time if I loved my shadow, I said yes. And it kind of took you back a little bit, but
Yeah.
it was more in the so in the sense of where I'm comfortable with it. And I maybe I don't fully understand all of it. I mean, there's still philosophical questions we ask to each other all the time that blow our minds. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe this is it,
Yeah.
maybe that. Some of the stuff we were talking about yesterday too. It's like, okay, well, maybe there's depths and there's levels to it, but at least I'm willing to sit in with it and be present with it and understand how to not let it guide my decision making per se. And I don't need to fully
And I think
rationalize it
the
all the
reason
time.
why it took me aback is because, like, for me personally, I have loved my shadow, and
Hmm.
then my shadow overtook me.
Right.
So
Well,
that's
and that's
why
what you got to be
that's why
wary
I that
about.
no that because that's why I was like, no, because I know what that means in my own perception. So I'm just like, I was just a little not weary, but just uh
I get
c-
it.
or protective of you, like, oh no, I gotta give him more light to, because I'm very present with my shadows,
Yep.
and the reason why I can be is because I got rid of a lot of the shadows, so
Yep.
that's what
You
made it a
brought them to
little,
light.
yeah, made it a lot easier to be able to be open with that. And do I think that uh I'll get rid of my shadows forever? No, because I think that, like you said, what Ram Dass says, you still have that monkey brain mentality of your conscious is going to jump around, your subconscious is going to jump around, your feelings are going to jump around, and being able to sit with those shadows, sit with that choice, then that's how you're able to process that. So
Right, exactly. And that's all I think that's really what the game is all about in a
yeah.
sense. It isn't about trying to achieve perfection or
Mm-hmm.
trying to become a spiritual master or like I'm so holy. Like even I remember Ram Dass talked about one time. We're talking a lot about Ram Dass
Yeah,
on this
well,
podcast.
we've seen him on your
Yeah.
feed on YouTube. So
Yep. So
not saying that we don't love Ram Dass.
he's just fresh in the
Yeah,
mind, I suppose, and
he's my
he
favorite.
has a lot of good analogies.
Yeah,
He even talked about one time
he's a smart dude.
his guru told him, or maybe it wasn't his guru, it was somebody, but he said he was told, you're on Earth. Maybe instead of trying to be so holy all the time, you should try and just be human. You know?
See, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Not so much of like being holy per se, but like trying to do too much. Like, how about I just be me? Like, if it comes out, it comes out. If
Right.
I'm never gonna not be me, and a part of me is a part of my esoteric, holistic type of things and
Yeah,
divinations and
me too.
whatever. Yeah, it's not like I'm trying to do them.
Right. Well, and that's the big difference. And I think you can actually create almost like a new ego, a new identity that is very much trapping
Yeah,
based on the
yeah,
spiritual stuff and the
yep.
esoteric, and make that a front for a deeper level of ego,
See, and
because
that
then you become a spiritual master and then you take it on as
because
a
that
persona.
yeah, see, because that's like when you're saying, what did you say before we started this? You're the most powerful person I had on here, and you know me knowing who I am and accepting that is one thing, but to, like you said, ego, let it take upon like this title per se. Like it's hard to like not bestow that on someone that that I call you Merlin for a reason. It's hard. But then on the other hand, I get what you're saying, because you don't want it to be like you're more.
Yeah.
Because in the end we're the same. We're the same.
Yep.
But maybe in this path, this experience, sure, this is your role
This
at
is
the
who you
moment,
are.
and I get that. But then it's like you resonate with so many different roles throughout your lifetimes or throughout your existences. It's like when you're able to do that, that's when it gets to be overwhelming and boost your fucking ego a lot. Because then you're like, oh yeah, well, what about and it's I don't
Well,
know how.
we sit here and
I'm just
say
a humble person, I
we
guess.
sit here and call each other the best tarot readers in the world. I'll say that about you per
Yeah,
se. And you could take that and fly with it as like, that's my new persona. That's my rock. That's what
And would I go out openly and say I'm the best tarot reader in the world?
no.
I won't even tell people I really read
Right.
tarot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a
Yeah.
humbleness to it. There's a
Do I
left.
think that I am tapped in divinely to source? And
Well, you are.
oh yeah,
You know you are, but you
yeah,
don't have to question it and you
no.
don't have to make it a part of your identity because it's just something
So I
that's
think that if another
natural.
person's saying that about you, I think that's acceptable.
Well, right. It's like you can accept compliments and praise, but again, it's like
Don't try to make them for yourself.
sometimes the mind, then
Yeah,
you seek the
yeah.
validation from it. It's like, wow, that felt good. Let
I
me
want to do some more. Yeah,
let me
yeah,
get a
yeah,
little more
yeah.
praise. Let me get that
That's why when
validation.
you asked what the store was about, I can sit here and tell you all different kinds of stories about what it is and what it's going to be and everything like that. But in the end, all I want Sacred Vibes to be is a place that you feel welcomed at. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. That's
A
right.
safe place that people are going to be present with you. And you can feel like you can be present with them.
I like that. Well, and that's sometimes why I have trouble even explaining the podcast to people. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. I'm
Yeah,
like, well,
man.
it's so dynamic, and it's so I can't put
There's
it in
so
a
much.
I
Yeah.
can't put it in a box,
No.
really. You know, it's just an extension of me. It's an extension of what I'm interested in, what I'm researching in, what I'm,
It's just you.
yeah, it's just you know me. Well, you could get an idea on what the podcast is
Yeah.
about. It's really just my own interests, my own ideas, my own
One of the
expression.
best things I have gotten from your episodes and your podcast is the one with Michio Kaku and how he talked about string theory and stuff, but then how he literally said, if I can explain this to you and you can explain it back, that means you know it too. You're an astrophysicist now.
Right.
That's coming from one of the
top
in
astrophysicist in the
my
world.
mind, he literally means that. If you're able to explain this, not saying that you created and not saying that you actually can whatever, but you're able to explain what I'm talking about and understand it in some sense, then
You know it.
So it's like, wow, that goes for everything.
Exactly. Exactly. We don't need a credential. You don't need a title
You don't need to go to school for 1,000 years to fucking think that you know something.
to become some sort of guru who's the master of his craft. If you want to delve
into it more and know more about it, then sure.
You should.
Yeah, but to know what it is,
that was a very humbling episode for me in a sense, because I'm like, that guy's a scientific master, and I don't really view myself as very well versed scientifically per se, or mathematically, or any of that. But I was like, wow.
Yeah,
kind
but he's very spiritual too.
Yeah, there's a spiritual dimension that comes out when you start talking about the deepest levels of science and mathematics. You start to see that nature has a pattern that you can follow and you can track and you can trace, and that these dimensions are.
And you're not able to explain it through words. You have to use it in that spiritual context.
You have to experience it.
Yeah, you have to experience it. And he understands that.
And you have to know it on an intuitive level more so than on an intellectual, rational, left brain thinking level. Because sure, you can get all the mathematics with let's say, but on I don't know, let's call it, what's the golden ratio, right? You could maybe understand that on an intellectual level, but can you go outside and see it?
Yeah.
That's a different level of intelligence.
And if you have both of those, and that makes it, so much more.
That's balance. That's a balanced approach. That's like when you can take the rational mind and
I think he knew that by his field of expertise, if he wants to be balanced, then he couldn't just know all the book stuff. He had to.
So, right, exactly. So there's some hidden spirituality,
and he reminds me of remember off of Kill Bill, that guy that does his beard thing. He reminds me of a guy like not mean per se, but just that wise and that profound.
He's very much like a Mr. Miyagi of the scientific community,
Yeah, man, he really is.
Shout out to the students who call me Mr. Miyagi. That's probably my favorite nickname.
So that's call you Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a very humbling nickname actually. It's like, wow, Mr. Miyagi's a master.
I know, but it's kind of
true. Don't flatter me.
There you go. Yep, there we go again. Now we can sit here and be present with it.
There goes the ego. I feel called to draw Oracle of the Mythic Heroes card. Shout out to Latal, who we're going to have on the podcast again soon, because I just spoke it, and therefore we're going to reach out to him and get him back on.
Nicely done.
But I just feel called
That's how it's done. I'll look at the bottom card. I just seen it on accident.
Sphinx, transition. Periods of transition, which is kind of what we've been in actually the last month or so, and I think what we're in right now. Here we are in a new studio. I've been sick the last week and a half. You've had your sicknesses. We're opening new things, creating new things. Old stories are ending. Chapters are closing. We're doing healing work. We're growing, and we're in this great period of transition. Like we said, where the fruits are starting to manifest in a lot of ways, right? And like the idea of the Sphinx. I mean, I know that resonates with you. You're a lion. You're Leo. Like that's one of them.
It has wings.
And it has wings. It flies, right? I should get a Sphinx tattoo.
It's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea at all. We had our own sphinxes. That's a very interesting, like, mythological creature. And like, everybody thinks about the Sphinx in Egypt, right? But I mean, we were watching stuff on the Grand Canyon a couple weeks ago where we had sphinxes in there.
Yeah, there's a Sphinx in the Grand Canyon.
Right. You get to certain points of the Grand Canyon, they don't let you go any further because you start uncovering.
So weird.
There is an ancient civilization that lived that was in the Grand Canyon, built pyramids, built sphinxes. It's like, was the original ancient Egypt in the Grand Canyon?
They moved to Egypt, or
Where what it
isn't that it's so odd to think that there's like stories and secrets and things like that that us as mainstream society don't know. It's like,
and we don't even care. Not that we don't care. Once you learn
well,
about it,
because you
you're
don't know, but
right.
for it to be hidden from us, it's so unfair.
Well,
It really is.
it's yeah. You almost have to think of it like this: if you had a whole new cultural and historical story on who
Mm-hmm.
we are and what has
Yeah, then
existed,
you'd lose
it
control,
puts
obviously. Yeah.
everything into question.
Yeah. And
Everything.
I get their take on it, but that still doesn't take the fact that
Well, it doesn't make it right that what
no,
they're doing. Of
it's
course
like,
not.
come on, man, I want to know this stuff.
Because like, what are the ramifications of something like that? It's like, well,
If it ever comes out mainstream, like you guys are done.
yeah,
Like,
it's about time.
why do you set yourself up for failure like that? It's just kind of foolish.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people right now can probably resonate with that idea of transition too, because if you think about it, we're actually approaching, if we're looking on like a lunar
Mm-hmm.
calendar, we're approaching the lunar new year, which is around the start of spring, and the Aries
Mm-hmm.
astrological sign is actually the first sign of like a new year. So that's why a lot of New
So
Year's.
what does Aries represent?
It's a fire sign. That's actually my moon sign is
It's your moon
Aries. It's
sign.
very passionate, fiery. It's the start of new.
Fiery new creation because of the age of Aquarius too.
Well, yeah, exactly. And we're
Like
moving into that type of energy soon. Once the Pisces season ends, which is what we're about. If we're not already there, what we're already moving into.
that's what Max
Well, it
right
goes
now, but
Pisces. It goes Aries is the start of spring. So we're moving into Aries season, right? And I was watching a reading with Latau actually talking
yeah.
about this very
The
same
creator
thing.
of this deck.
Yeah, the very same thing about how, in particular, there's going to be a lot of new manifestations. And if you're putting out intentions, expect it around the springtime,
Yeah.
right? And that's very much the energy. I think we're in a period of transition. So many people's New Year's resolutions fail because they set them at the wrong time. They need
Yeah.
to transition out of the previous lunar year, out of the winter, into the spring where there's new life, there's new beginnings, there's creation.
That's a better feeling because everybody sets their New Year. I've never once done that before, but they set
Nope.
them right with expectation of following through with them. But do they ever follow through with them?
It's because it's the
So
wrong
you know what I
time.
mean?
It's the wrong time.
It's that routine that they think they can set in. Well, obviously you're starting at the wrong time, and you have every time because look at it has
Right. It never
came.
works.
So just like you said, started at this time once.
Exactly. So I think this is anybody who's listening can start to, I would say, start to specifically focus on now.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that we're transitioning out of? Be very consciously aware of what is it time to let go of? What is the old that we're
3D
letting go?
stagnant realities.
Right. What is that stagnant energy within us? How do we release it, express it? And then as we move even closer into March, into spring, boom, transition into a new period. And if anybody's listening,
Blossom into a flower.
I was going to say, if anybody's listening to this later on, it's still applicable. You
Yeah.
found it at the right
Yeah.
time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Let's pull another card. Being present.
Being present through our transition. This would be a good one.
Service. Aristos. Us. I don't know. Aris something. Aristos. I don't know who he is. Aristias. Let's how we need to.
Aristias. He's the beekeeper. Look, he's going to harvest his honey.
That's correct. But I mean, and that's a way to transition is to be of service. Isn't that really what life's all about? Being of service.
Yeah, it's really when you're present with yourself, right? The only like thing to do is to serve.
It's to be of service.
And it's not, and I know that sounds like bad, like you're a servant, but I mean, really, what does a servant
What
do?
are you serving?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
You're
the real
serving each
question.
other and yourself.
That is the real, I think, and that is the perspective people sometimes fail to grasp on why do we do anything? Why would we help others?
Yep.
Why am I mean, it's easy to get caught and there's a certain level of baseline like self-centeredness that we do need to have just for our own survival. But if let's say we assume most of those things are taken care of and we're able to meet our own needs, right? Okay, then we can start to transition into being of service. What does that mean? Why are we being of service? What's the point of that? You're serving something greater than the individual self, whether it is a fellow brother, whether it's, I don't
Yeah.
know, somebody who's in a time of need, right? And you're giving to give. And it's like maybe that's just being present with somebody when they're in a rough place. Maybe that's a direct financial contribution. Maybe it's everybody's ways of being service
Yeah.
and how they give
But do
service
you
is going to
think
be
that
different.
because we give service, the reason why we are is because we know that in turn that'll reflect back on us, and we'll be able to receive service too. That's
Well,
the
of
reasoning
course,
why, you know, like
of course. I mean, there is a
treat
level.
people how you want to be treated type of thing.
There's a selfishness that comes with it because it feels good to be of service.
Yeah.
Feels good to help others.
Yeah.
If I can help somebody, I feel good about myself.
That's why I do it all the time.
Yeah.
The best gift for me is like to be able to help and serve, only because like without me doing it, someone else or they would have to do it. So I'm almost like gifting you my service.
Right. And it's a beautiful
that you wouldn't
thing.
have had unless I did otherwise.
And it's a beautiful feeling internally to actually like accept that, like, I'm making a difference.
Yes.
You know, and there's
the best feeling. I'm making a difference.
I'm making a difference. There's a level of selfishness that comes with it that you have to actually kind of embrace. It's like, yeah,
that's one time where it's okay to be selfish with that feeling, because you're doing something outside of, you know, your own path for somebody else.
Well, and you know what's interesting? All the things that we're creating right now is very much with the idea of service at its core.
That's literally the only reason why, you know, for example, you know, sacred vibes, like, what does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me?
Yeah, what does the words sacred vibes mean to you?
Well, anything that is sacred, I would put in almost holy resonance, and like there's a reverence and a respect and something that you can go into and feel this deep sense of purpose, community, love, like something much bigger than the individual self. Connection, I think, is at the root of it. And so if you're creating something under the umbrella of sacred vibes, that in itself means you are providing that type of space, that type of connection, that type of uh, environment where people can find that within themselves and feel that and return to themselves and be present with this feeling of sacredness. Because I think we look for the sacred everywhere all the time. I mean, you could argue that, like in sports, for example, why do people hold like the Tom Brady's in the highest regard? Because it's like this
Just
is
have to use Tom Brady.
this. Well, yeah, of course,
just
I'm a
kidding.
Patriots fan. This is like a holy figure. This is a messiah of the football world, right? And so you have there's this
He's brought
reverence.
so much glory and attention and energy back to that. Yeah.
And so we have this natural inclination to worship and to have a reverence for things. And I think so if you're creating a sacred vibe, you're creating this sense of this return to the feelings of worship and channeling them in a much more positive, influential environment, to where it comes back to ourselves and we find what matters. We connect with deeper level. Oh, my ears are starting to ring.
Yeah.
Deeper levels of connection and beauty and love. And so that, to me, that's what I get from sacred vibes. And it creates like that type of service. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh,
if you're
man.
able to provide that kind of service for somebody, I mean, what else can you really provide them?
What else do you need?
You don't need anything else. And that's the thing. Being able to provide that service of that connected spiritual pureness, right? But then making that the vibe, you know, and with the vibes being said, that's the resonant frequency getting pushed out. So if that's what you're rippling across existence, what else is there? Really?
That's all we need. That's it. That's it. And I think that's the type of creative process.
I hope everybody just heard that.
Oh yeah, they're listening, aren't they? I was gonna say that anybody who's here is still, they heard that for sure.
Dang.
Well, we'll have to put that out on like an ad blurb for
like a short.
especially when we're getting closer to launch.
Yeah.
So
that was awesome.
But that's what it's all about, and that's what we're creating, and that's what you're creating, and I think that is what ideally anybody who would be listening and wants to engage on this level of type of service and creativity, that's what it would be all about. Is that mission in mind. I mean, because you can create sacred vibes around the whole world, doesn't mean you have a million sacred vibe storefronts, but you have purpose driven missions of individuals all over the world with that same mentality. That's sacred vibes.
That's all it is.
That's what it is.
And that's why I like opening this store. My wife and Gunner's fiance, Allie, like, I get that, you know, they want to sell items and material things and but they want to create them as well. So which is even more meaningful.
Yep.
But in my own personal, you know, path and journey, like, it's not so much about selling somebody something, more so than being service to them.
Yeah.
It goes back to that being on whatever type of service I can
And
help them with.
if that means it's a crystal infused T-shirt or it's a singing bowl and that's what they're buying, wonderful. If that means they're coming in and they're getting a tarot reading, wonderful.
Yeah.
If that means they're coming in and they're sitting down and you're just having a conversation and that's what they needed to be of service today, amazing.
Did you hear that? That just sounded, I'm not kidding you, that just sounded like a huge like singing bowl just went off. That's weird, dude.
I speak singing bowls into
I
existence.
Wow.
I speak it into
That was
existence.
odd. That was
I
cool,
love it.
though.
I love it. Well, and I think that's what it's all about right there. And the culmination of that, some powerful card right here.
I know I got the tiger calcite, the yin yang in my hand too.
Let's see what we get today. Hercules, strength. That's what that almost speaks for itself in a lot of ways. Strength, true strength, mastery of oneself. It isn't about the external.
Remember, this is my card out of the deck too.
I know.
My archetype of Latao's Oracle of the Mythic Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
Hercules.
We got Mr. Hercules himself sitting right here. That's right. He just looked at the camera. But I mean, that's what it's all about. And when I think of
if you add this Sphinx with Orestes, it creates. Look at it. It really does. Look at it. It creates Hercules.
It's telling a story.
It creates him.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Even the beard, mustache. He's just obviously more jacked. But
here, he hit the gym for a minute.
Look at that story it tells you.
I was gonna say, and that's the beautiful thing about that's the beautiful thing about cards is they always tell you a story if you know how to look in the right way.
Especially when you are accepting that you're connected to it and you see it for what it is.
Well, it's really the integration, the yin and yang that you just mentioned, the integration of service and transition into strength.
I
and
just said that in my head as yours.
Exactly. It's an integrating process of that to create this greater level of strength and mastery and like true beauty. And like,
okay, so let's just do this real quick.
Yep.
So if we're transitioning our service into strength, what does that strength create? What does that strength create? That's a lot. Yeah,
I'll let you draw the card. This is what our daily tarot readings look like. By the way, everybody. So, or oracle readings. We always get to this level with it, and it's beautiful.
We just start telling stories with them, and
yeah,
it's like whoa. Cleanse. Okay.
Sirens, cleanse. Cleansing.
That's awesome.
Purity.
Purity, cleansing.
Purification. Well, it's like a sense of new. It's kind of what we were talking. Come all the way back to it.
It's a full circle.
That's a full circle. It comes back to a rebirth. And I just drew what we were doing tarot the other day. I just drew the death card, right? Yep. And the period of death and transitioning and a rebirth into something new. Wrote in a couple poems about that lately. That's been the vibe for me. Cleansing, purification. Cleansing. And I think that's in a lot of ways.
Well, look what our cards that we drew for the reading.
Temperance.
The Temperance, Ace of Swords, and Hierophant.
Right.
That's
exactly.
Like kind of the same journey right there.
It's the same exact story. And I think that is what, in this time, especially if we're going to be present with ourselves, why are we present with ourselves? It is to be born anew. It is to be who we are.
Yeah, we can understand and be who we are. And then the things we need to transition and let go, we can cleanse ourselves of and be more present.
Well, and that's the thing. Becoming who we are is not about adding more things. It's about letting go of what no longer serves us and what isn't us. Because really, it's just a bunch of blockages. It's a bunch of, illusions, walls, all the things that we put up that make us not who we are. When in reality, if we just clear it away, cleanse, purify. All right, here we are. We're right here. We're present. That's it.
And I think that when we were looking at the pictures of the Badlands, I think that's one thing that was different about us is that I hate to say it, but like we have more attachments and more materialistic type of things, which is understandable. I get it. But I think that we're shifting in a way that these things are serving purpose.
It is. Well, we've almost had to go into a period of like, all right, well, we want to build an empire with who we are and what we're doing. We almost had
Palace of Wands.
Palace of Wands. We've drawn that card a couple times. And so it's like you almost have to at some points go into the material mindset of creation but at the same time, you're right. We're in a period of transition where we're already, all right, we know how to do that. So let's harness it and let's channel it into this this purified version of it, to
Yeah.
where we don't it isn't about making money, it isn't about
No.
material, it isn't about those things will take care of
It
itself.
is about creating those things, so in turn that you're able to help this plane of existence with that, but also to be building up the spirituality, the higher dimensional energies of that too, to back that
Hmm.
with them.
And you just have to go in with the knowing and the faith.
Yeah.
All those material things, that'll take care of itself, as long as you are going into this with the right
With the
intention and
purity.
with the purity.
Mhm.
Otherwise, if you do go in with greed and all these things,
That's
then
all
it's
it's going to
like,
amount to.
then you can never get enough of it.
Yeah.
And then you'll always find a reason to why you need more.
That's like with a lot of things in your apartment. Like, I've gifted you because I have a lot of those types of things at home. So obviously I can go without them because it's helping you. It's
Hmm.
filling space, like all that aspect. So it feels good to be able to do that.
Right.
You know?
Well, and I'm always very grateful and
Oh,
appreciative,
of
because I'm
course.
like, I would call myself an extreme minimalist. I can survive with basically nothing
Yeah, I
and be
know.
content.
But then when
Like, I
you,
don't even have a bed
yeah, I know, but
at the
you've
moment.
had lots of things.
Yes.
It's just either you've kind of left them or given them,
Yep.
or you know what I mean? Like they
Yep.
weren't important to you when you were journeying. So you're
Yep.
just like, well, I'll just put
What?
all that out on the road and
Yep.
whoever.
Yep. You should have seen me when I was leaving
I
Montana.
can't
I had
even
so much
imagine.
stuff, and I put all of it for free on the Facebook Marketplace. Didn't take a dime of money, nothing.
Did everyone come get everything?
Oh, immediately.
Yeah, like I'll take that. I'll take
Swarm
that.
like
Yeah,
vultures.
yeah. Like what the? I didn't die.
Swarm like vultures. Oh wow, this
Yeah, yeah,
stuff free.
yeah, yeah.
Ah,
You probably could have gotten money out
I
of it
know I
too,
could have
huh?
probably a few $100s at the minimum.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
that's
nice
funny.
stuff in there, but I was just kind of the mindset of, let me just shed myself of these things, and I will do so in the most efficient way possible, free.
So back onto the being present. Okay,
Hmm.
we haven't even really. I mean, we've obviously been talking about present and what that kind of means to us and looks like, but from your own outlook and your own personal perception, like what does presence look like to you? For you, just for you.
Well, all right, let me demonstrate it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is weird. This is the longest we've ever looked at each other and not talked. See how I even had to.
That is presence.
Wow.
It goes beyond words.
Can we only be present like 90%?
Yes. Let me try and intellectualize and rationalize what I just did.
Yeah, that was odd.
To be present is to simply be. It's like, it's the second you even try and do something or say something about presence, you're almost taking yourself out of it to rationalize it. So it's like that idea of even like God, right?
Mhm.
The second or holiness, the second you speak of it, and like
Taken away from it.
you never truly capture it,
Mhm.
right? So I think anything we say about it, you have to experience it to know it first
Things
and
like that
foremost.
are more powerful than just being able to express the feeling and the because it's
Mhm.
so much more than you're saying exactly what I'm trying to say
Oh,
too.
right, yeah. And I think that's the beauty of it, though. And it's like, you kind of have to have those moments of like nothingness, in a way,
To
whether it's,
have everything.
yeah, to know it,
Yeah.
to really be in it, and to actually appreciate it. I mean, I would say the most powerful moments I've experienced in my life, at least on in my own, like, with myself,
Mhm.
and this has been in those silent moments where the world speaks, where the environment speaks, where the sunset speaks, where the music speaks, where it's like where I don't have to do any of the talking. I
Because
simply
you're purely listening and being and feeling and being present.
there's a harmonic rhythm to life and to nature and to God and presence in itself, that when you just observe it, it's all right there.
So, do you think that because we're casting words and spells through our voices and sounds, do you think the reason why we can't be present purely by talking and stuff like that is because we keep adding? So you're never truly present because you're not
Well,
being in that moment.
I think it comes down to conscious intent with the words, because who's to say? Because there's always addition and subtraction in nature. There's ebb and flows.
Mhm.
There's death. There's birth. There's bloom, there's decay, like it's constant, right? And so I
Yeah.
think even within ourselves, what we are creating, we are a part of that natural cycle. If we are speaking with our words, we are creating, we are casting
Hmm.
words, rhythm, rhyme,
Oh yeah.
flow. We're constantly feeding into that same cycle. So I think if we are going like what we're doing here and now,
Hmm.
we've been in presence the whole time. We have been in a magical, like conversational, like roller coaster of exploring the ether and exploring the imagination and exploring a concept through embodying a sense of presence with one another.
So do you think that's a different type of
It's a
presence
different,
though?
it's a different manifestation of presence that isn't just silence. But if somebody is coming in, who's to say it's any different than when I'm sitting and we're sitting watching a sunset and there's no words?
Hmm.
Who's to say somebody who's listening to this doesn't get that same feeling that we get when we're watching a sunset?
So that's a good point. So what I'm meaning though is like, so how they're encompassing that presence
Mhm.
through us,
Yep.
are we actually being 100% present with each other by talking? Remember how you just stopped and started looking at me? That's how we were being present. That was
Yeah. I would
right.
say as long as at least in conversations,
Hmm.
all you can do is um, continue to check yourself that you're not listening to say something specific and you're
Hmm.
in if like when you speak, for example, this is the greatest gift podcast has given me, just in general. When somebody speaks, just in general,
Yep.
my mind turns off. Now, every once in a while, I will catch myself thinking and kind of lose track of what they're saying,
Yeah.
but it's much more rare because I've almost trained myself to catch myself and know and to
Yeah.
actually
You're a great listener.
right. And so
Yeah.
I think as long as you choose to
Probably
listen,
the best listener I've ever met.
that's a high honor. Thank you.
Yeah.
As
You're
long as
welcome.
you're choosing to, as long as one listens and then speaks from the not always the heart, but speaks from
Spirit.
the spirit
Yep.
and a deeper knowing, well then
There you
that's
go.
as present as you can be in conversation.
I agree.
And I would say this conversation has been an embodiment of what presence with one another looks like, in where we're just going in with the intent to explore and see what comes out of it.
I like it.
That's kind of what it's all about. So I think there's different levels and different forms of presence
Okay.
in a lot of ways, depending on the circumstance, because it's never going to be the same, you
No,
know,
because it's always different, always changing.
always. You can never expect it to be the same.
No, that's awesome.
Even if we were to go and have this conversation again in a month, it would play out totally different.
Yep.
We'd draw totally different cards. We'd come in with a totally different vibe based on what the world is doing around us, and we'd hit it on a totally different angle.
Very well put.
Thanks.
No, I do like how maybe getting more connected with yourself, just myself in general, and being able to be present, more present with people. I think that's been one of my strong points always, is that when I'm genuinely like interacting with somebody, I'm very present with them. I think
You
that
are.
I think that goes back to like maybe not having so much presence with people growing up, so feeling kind of, alone and lonely and not heard and not connected. So now when, I'm connecting or being present with somebody, anybody for that matter, like it really feels good to like have that interaction, have
Yeah.
that
Shared
exchange.
presence and
Yeah.
shared. It's
Yep.
almost like well, we give each other gifts each time we expand upon our thoughts and
Hmm.
imagination because you give people a new way of being and a new way of thinking and a new
Yeah. How
perspective.
awesome is it to be able to like talk and exchange words and feelings with somebody and know that they're reciprocating it and feeling the same
Oh, and
way?
I know you know it. I
Oh
know
yeah,
you know
man.
it. We've had our
Yeah.
conversations
Oh,
and we've
dude.
chatted with Latau and we've had our
Many conversations and experiences with different people that it's like, thanks for your presence, like
hmm.
it is a gift. It really
Well,
is,
and that's the greatest gift you can ever give to anybody.
Yes. That's why they use that in words as a present, as a gift. There's double
Hmm.
meaning to it, obviously, because it does mean multiple things.
Right, exactly. I mean, if I can just show up for somebody fully present,
That's more than what was before.
that's it. That's all.
Which in
That's
turn, look what it gives all these other avenues and
oh, and that's the only thing I can ever promise to somebody
uh-huh.
too. I can never promise anything else because
No.
then I always heard the idea I resonated with: under promise, over deliver. you know? So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll give you
That's a
my,
great way to actually look at it because it is a letdown. You
yeah,
know?
when you overpromise and
Yeah.
underdeliver. So I've
Yeah.
taken on the mindset, I'm going to underpromise and overdeliver. And then it's like, all right, I'm going to give you my full presence, and whatever is birthed from that,
It's even,
beautiful.
yeah.
Beautiful. That was meant to be, you know? I think that's the vibe.
What do you think? Maybe somebody out there that wants to be present but doesn't kind of understand how to get there. What do you think maybe could help them start routinely being present? And just in oneself, even not for somebody else, but just
Just in general,
yeah, in general.
I think it's about noticing. I think it's becoming,
Noticing what themselves, little things around them, what like
yeah, just
everything.
starting with oneself. I would say it has to start with yourself, right?
You think just even
Noticing your thoughts.
yeah, I was just gonna say like noticing your
How do you speak to
breathing, your thought.
yourself? How
Yeah.
do you breathe? Yeah, noticing the breath. That's the basis of meditation. Noticing the breath first.
Mm-hmm.
Noticing those small fundamental processes and thoughts and ideas and things that we speak about ourselves. And it's like, okay, are these thoughts actually true? Is this actually who I am?
Mm-hmm.
Is this actually what I think? Is this the reality? Hmm.
Or
When,
is it just this moment and it'll pass and then I'll think of something else, you
right.
know?
Look at the bigger picture on it.
Yeah.
Like, is this actually speaking truth, or am I in a moment of anxiety and worry, which is fine? We all get in that. We get
Yeah.
in that space.
That's that jumping around type of.
Hmm. I'm gonna ask the deck that question too, because I want to know what it says and thinks, what the energy is. I feel like there's a
You're gonna ask it what?
what you just asked me,
Okay.
because I feel like there's a
How does one get more present with itself?
I feel like there's a concept that we could. I don't know exactly how to articulate it. Ha!
What was I say? Faith, Penelope. That's. I mean,
Faith. Well, isn't that the truth? I mean, what is even faith? It's like a
presence in the bigger belief of spirituality and of more connectedness to everything. Type of like you having faith is like it's actually like a way of being.
yeah.
It's not even a way of thinking.
It's a way of being.
A way of
Exactly.
being. Like
You kind of have to connect with that and believe in the process, because the problem is it's not quantifiable per se. It's not always. You can't. How do you truly measure the checking of your own thoughts and your own
about how
ideas
you feel.
about how you feel? I mean, you can journal and you can write,
I mean,
and you
that's really the only way.
there's small things like that you can do, but you have to have faith that what you are doing is enough to continue to over time bring you back into further levels of presence.
Well, if your faith is making you feel at one with yourself and with everything else, and
That's presence.
that's presence. That's what I meant. Like that's the only way you can really. I mean, it's not about checking it like you said with like how's my following
Right.
or what do I have or how are the people around me. It's more so of how do I really feel about
Mm-hmm.
this,
Mm-hmm.
and I do feel so strongly, and I am very faithful towards this. So you know what I mean? Like it's
Faith,
wow,
a faith
a great card for
transitioning
that.
into knowing, I would say, more so than even believing. Like, because if you believe, there's always that seed of doubt.
Yeah, like maybe I'm wrong or
Oh, but what if, you know? And it's like, even the word in the middle of the word believe, it says lie, lie. Tell yourself it's a lie. So it's like, all right, I know,
that's yeah,
I know that this is real.
yeah.
And that's, and it's like us when we're looking up in the sky, right? We know the stuff up
Oh
there
yeah,
is
there's
real.
certain things that I don't say I think that's it or I say I know that to be
And
true.
we know what
And
we're
it's not
seeing
even
is
my
true.
truth or my knowing.
It's just
It's
truth.
yeah, just
It simply is. And I think once you understand that and feel truth and you feel knowing, you just have to know in it.
yeah, it's
You
more of faith.
don't
Yeah,
even
it
doubt
goes
it.
back to the faith of knowing it. Like it's
Hmm.
not the fact that like you said you're just with 99% of the shadow of a doubt. Well, there's still out. You just know it. If you know something, you know it. It's
Hmm.
the truth.
And that's the
Now, do
beauty
you
of it.
think that's the truth for everybody? Probably not.
All about perception,
But then I think that that just goes back to them not knowing the truth.
right? And everybody unpacks at different levels and is
Mm-hmm.
uncovers things in different ways. And you can't force another person to see something that you see. And
No.
it's all about just embracing it. Oh, there's the signal on your computer that it's going to die soon. So, as the screen just went dimmer, there was a
Well,
little pop-up notification. Maybe that means
maybe this is part 1.
yeah, we're meant to transition out of it for right now and then come back and then
Yeah, because
continue.
this is a really in-depth conversation. Actually, I like it.
We're only going to
Maybe
keep
we need to brainstorm some more. And
continue to expand upon it.
yep.
I like it. I like it. Well, thanks for christening in the new
Well, yeah, man.
studio.
I want to shout out Sacred Vibes. I want
Yep.
to shout out Good Times and King of Relief and Tranquil Desires in the 5th dimension.
Mm-hmm. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
that.
having me on. And
Always.
it was
You're
beautiful.
you're the number one guest. The most.
Well, you're
Hey,
my number one podcaster, so it goes hand in hand.
thank you. There is no fifth dimension. Maybe there is, but it's not to the level it's at without this man right here. So we'll leave it at that. We'll catch y'all on the next episode. There will be a part 2 for this conversation very soon. Expect another conversation with Latau in the very near future. I think we just need to have like every other month with him or something, once every 2 months or so.
I think that would just do the existence a service,
Yeah, I think so.
It helps.
Maybe every new season.
That's a great
every
idea.
seasonal change.
That's a great idea. I think he would love that too.
Every winter, every spring.
I know that he'd love that.
Summer and fall. Yeah, every transition into a new season. I think that
projects his energies out too, just as well.
So, I like that. Yeah. I like that. We're always brainstorming, thinking.
We're always creating stuff.
I love it. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir. Love you, man.
Love you too. We'll see you all next time.